Did you know that unexercising can actually make you healthier, stronger, and live a better life? Unexercise with our guest today, Cari Vann. This is how you do it.
Ain't no call like a beauty call.
Hey there, this is Dr. Z. Welcome back to BeautyCallz, everyone. Today we have a special guest calling from just a couple hours away in Durham, North Carolina. Her name is Cari Vann, and she is an expert in helping you relieve your pains and your chronic problems that keep you from having ultimate health and wellness. And so, of course, on this podcast, we talk about beauty, fitness, philosophical things, but a lot of it has got to do with the wellness, and you can't really be well if you're in pain, right? So let's talk to Cari about how she got into all this and what kind of tidbits she can give us to start on a journey of a healthier life. So, Cari, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
Oh, you're very welcome. So, just to start out, tell me a little bit about your background and what led you up to the point where you got into this business. In particular, your I guess coaching business with the Complete Well Body method.
Yes, absolutely. I've always loved movement. I was born that way. And my mom actually put me in a creative movement class like at age 4, right? Anyway, fast forward, my feet just couldn't handle it. By my sophomore year in college, my feet had given out, and I found out that I was missing a joint in each of my feet, which would explain all the numerous doctor's visits and pain. So I just became very proactive about finding solutions to movement. I wanted to enjoy the freedom of movement. And so that's what I did. I did that through education, lots of training in numerous modalities. And I really did get to focus a lot of my time in different medical centers, University of Pittsburgh, University of Maryland, and the Duke medical system. And you know, along the way, I did not always do things correctly myself, even though I had that knowledge, right? So I was over exercising, using food in not a good way, occurred repetitive
Mm-hmm.
movement and all that stuff, right? Which led to a lot of injuries in my body. And so I learned through all of those, but I'm still pretty stubborn. So basically, it took for me 2 car wrecks, basically back to back,
Oh,
to really slow me down.
mm-hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
and that's really what got my attention, and that's where I had to shift and begin to do things totally different than I had been doing them.
Well, let's back up a second. So before that, you're talking about you were learning about movement. Is this through um, university setting? You mentioned a couple of schools. Do you have a degree in like health or in biomechanics, or what's your background there?
Sure. So I have 2 degrees, and they're both in exercise physiology. Um,
Okay.
and I studied kinesiology, all the stuff, the specifics of physiology. I've done different types of research, primarily on the effects of strength training in older men and postmenopausal women, as well as we looked at bone changes and bone
Mm-hmm.
architecture. That was my area at the time. But yeah, so I've done that, and just like lots of trainings in different modalities as
Oh,
well.
that's cool. So you really you studied the physiology and the biomechanics of the human body, and
Yeah.
then you said, but you were stubborn, meaning you weren't putting your knowledge into practice.
Well, I even the knowledge I was receiving wasn't really, I got all the facts, but we learn by doing. At least that's what I do. And
Mm-hmm.
um and we take things in different ways, and I think it was a process of understanding what really works best and know for my body. Um
Mm-hmm.
so yes. Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean? Like, what before your accidents, which we're going to get into, what were you doing wrong? Which I'm assuming is the same thing that I and most of the people we know are doing wrong is in how we treat our bodies.
Yeah. So, I think that it boils down to I began to actually slow down. And this is what I now call like I had an unexercising approach. This is what I would say. And that is listening to my body and actually not telling it what to do, And I had to unwind, like you're saying, and unlearn a lot of things I had learned about exercise in the past. And one of those things definitely was not ignoring pain or pushing through it,
Mm-hmm.
as well as really connecting my mind to my body through breath. And that really led to enhanced focus, concentration, and the ability to build a foundation for my body that would support it and all of its movements. So there was a huge shift there and a kind of a stepping back and viewing movement, I would say, more as mindful medicine, mindful movement more as medicine, right? To help
Mm-hmm.
the body as opposed to, and more of a holistic approach, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. You make me think of injuries, sports injuries, and how too many people try to ignore or work through them dangerously. I know we've learned a lot over the past several years. I particularly am a basketball fan, and I remember in the 80s and 90s, the players, let's say in the NBA, um, you know, prided themselves in being tough and never missing a game and working through injuries and pain. Today, they say these modern players are not as tough, but maybe they're just smarter because someone kind of strains, a groin or a hamstring and they're out 3-4 weeks automatically, because I think we've learned how the long term effects of not doing that are detrimental to your career. So we have learned some things, but still, people who aren't professionals or don't have guidance from a professional, we might have a little minor injury and just ignore it. Is that kind of what you're getting at in part?
Yeah, I would say kind of. I think that that I really, for me, I found that there were there are pillars to pain-free movement. That's how I view it, and that's kind of what happened as I began to integrate those pillars into my world, not knowingly. And then it was like a stint of 15 to 17 years, really, that I began to be blessed with people coming my way to share that information and help them and help myself. And so that's been my personal experience, and I'd be happy to share what I believe
Yeah.
those pillars are.
Well, tell me what happened with the accidents and how things changed for you after that.
Yeah. So I began, like I said, to listen to my body, and I understood the value of the mind body connection. And
What kind of
so,
injuries did you have?
so so I accrued almost an injury to every part of my body prior to the car wrecks, like from just, repetitive movement, I would say. With the car wreck specifically, it was interesting. I actually had two cervical strains back to back. And it put
Like a
me in a,
whiplash?
yeah, yeah, like, two back to back. And so I had to, and walking at that time, that really it was painful, right? You could feel your neck and everything. So I do remember, really having to take back I basically the what I would call the foundations. If we're going to look at one component, which I think is important, I believe what I call therapeutic Pilates
Hmm.
to be a key element to pain-free movement. And I do want to say this: when I say the word pain-free movement, you don't have to be in pain to do this stuff, and that's really our last red flag indicator. There's a in my belief, there's a crossover between what we need to be doing to prevent injury as well as to possibly relieve pain and discomfort.
Hmm.
And so that's my stance. And, um, therapeutic Pilates. So I delved into that really deeply. I've studied it. I've done um, all kinds of different studies, types of Pilates over the years, and you can still hurt yourself doing Pilates, right?
Well, can you tell us what Pilates is? I know most people know, but there's a lot who don't really understand exactly what distinguishes Pilates from other kind of exercises.
So Pilates, like I just said, can be taught in many different ways. So I'm going to speak on how I believe it to be helpful. And so when I say therapeutic, it's things that are good for your body. And primarily, we're going at or we want to be going at the very, very deep muscles that support our body. Like we could use the word core, and there's a lot of muscles involved there. So it's the deepest part, like our pelvic floor, our transverse abdominal muscles, that we really want to get active. And most people, they're very, very weak and inactive. So if you guys could envision having you may have heard of like the six pack muscle. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I see it
Yeah.
every morning in the mirror.
Okay, yeah, the muscle that you see, that muscle you see in the mirror is
Yeah.
overrated. It's overrated, overrated, overrated.
What
A
does
lot
it
of
mean when
us,
you have 8 of them? Does that mean anything?
yes, it means you're Batman. Right? Didn't
So
he
it's
say that?
overrated because it's on the surface, right? It's not a
Yeah.
core muscle.
Yeah, it's part of the core. I'm not going to say that it isn't, but we give it a lot of press, and we've got to go deeper now. We can have a really strong six pack muscle or rectus abdominal, but really weak muscles underneath there. So we
Mm-hmm.
want to get those strong in a safe manner, and then
Mm-hmm.
we want to get movement into our joints and our spine. Is so important to get movement in. That's one of the things I see lacking a lot in general fitness, is that we're not getting that movement into our spine.
So does
Um,
Pilates involve any cardio, or is it predominantly like core strengthening and stretching, stuff like that?
I'll break it down. It's core strength, spinal movement, and movement of all of our joints. You can consider it like movement therapy. Does that make sense?
How's it different than yoga, for example?
So there are so many different types of yoga, and I've studied hatha and restorative and taken, tons of different classes over the years and different modalities. So yoga works a lot on our flexibility, and that's different because we're not addressing the stabilizing muscles of our body as much. So there's more of an emphasis on stability and
Mm-hmm.
strengthening, getting that component, I would
Gotcha.
say.
I'm envisioning a lot of planks.
Yeah, people say that, and I say that, yeah, but that's really advanced. And if we go there first, again, this is my belief and my experience, and we can compensate. This is what I found to be true in so many ways. So before we even jump to the plank, we need to build up our foundation. Guess what? Our breath is important. If you put your hand on your stomach muscle right now and you just cough,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you feel those muscles.
Right.
Yeah, the breath is really important in engaging the deep pelvic floor muscles. Before we even jump into the plank, we got to go there. That's
Okay.
how we get control of our bodies.
So that's one of your pillars is therapeutic Pilates.
That is one of my pillars. Yeah.
Okay. And so a beginner would start with movements that strengthen the core and do things to kind of start from the ground up in addressing the often neglected muscles, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. And so we do that by taking a class, by watching YouTube videos.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. So if you're asking me, yeah. So I would say no to both of those.
We
You
come
want
to
to,
you.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. You want, to each his own. I think what works for one person is not going to work for everybody. I do want to share that you can hurt yourself doing Pilates. So choose wisely. And if you're looking to do Pilates specifically, you want to work with somebody. If you're coming from the standpoint of injury prevention and pain management, which is why we're here today, you want to make sure that you find somebody that's skilled in those arenas. And not only that, but they have experience directly with what you need. Because there's a lot of people that are teaching Pilates in many different ways, and that's not all of their focus. And one of the biggest injuries when it comes to Pilates is the neck. And believe it or not, also the back. So you've got to be careful. Last thing I'll say is that your foundation is key and is often skipped when we do Pilates. And if we don't start there with those fundamentals, we're going to have to come back to them. So
Hmm.
that's what I'll share. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Actually, I mentioned to you before we started recording that I have personal history with some of the stuff that you treat. Back pain, a little bit of foot pain, I think just from standing. But to give you my personal quick story, like so many people, I have a family history of low back pain and disc herniation, and I experienced that probably a few years ago. So I was dealing with that pain and trying to get through it non surgically for over a year. But given my line of work and having to bend over and stand and operate all day, it just wasn't working. So I did have a successful um, discectomy, which was great. But I've noticed that during those past few years of dealing with that, I really stopped using my spine stabilizers and a lot of the musculature that was hurting,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's quite weak. And even still, although I don't have pain, I don't even bend over the way I used to before my injury. I kind of just sort of like avoid bending altogether because my brain has been trained to avoid those movements. Where I think slowly recuperating some of that lost, atrophied, stabilizing muscle might be a smart thing to do instead of avoiding it altogether.
Yeah, 100%.
And Pilates might be a good way. I never really thought of it. Honestly, I didn't really even know what it was. I thought there's like these machines that you do, like little tracks or something for Pilates.
Yeah, so yeah, there's so many ways you can do Pilates, and I think it's based on what's going to work best for the person and what they're willing to do. Is it a matter of convenience? Is it a matter of can I do things at home? 100%. That's what I do.
Hmm.
There's so many things. And do you need the equipment? No. Can you replicate the equipment at home? Yes. Do you want to go to a studio? You might if you have the time. I think it boils down to those things.
Gotcha. Cool. So let's move on then. What's your next pillar?
So mobility stretching is a term that I created because flexibility improves our mobility, and that's what I call it. So ideally,
Mobility training
mobility stretches.
stretches. Okay.
So what we're working on is stretching, flexibility that improves our mobility, right?
Sure.
And most of us are not stretching, not even stretching at all, or not even. We need to stretch so much more than we can imagine. There's so much good that can become out of it. That's been my experience, and working with people over the years, this is one element that people just don't. They want to skip over, but
Hmm.
what's important here is that actually is an amazing tool for several reasons. One, it gets you to connect to your own body and understand it more. There's
Hmm.
power of breathing here. If we take into that aspect yoga, which I do, that diaphragmatic breath, when we have the time, we want to use it. It calms our nervous system down. It relaxes the nerves that can release the muscles, and it calms our mind down. And there's
Hmm.
connection there. Um, so great for reducing anxiety, great for stress management, and you get the benefit of injury prevention. And there are a lot of things that we need to be checking in with throughout our week to see where am I holding tension? Okay. So when we integrate that habit into our week, there's so much power there. Amazing
Hmm.
power for
How,
injury
how do
prevention.
you recommend you integrate it? Is obviously a daily practice.
We've got to start somewhere. So the way I work with people is we start by building up a main mobility stretch routine, getting to know our bodies. And those are key, what I would say would be key stretches that we want to check in with throughout our week. And then we build upon those tools so that we're armed. Because if you're having issues with your neck, you want to know how to take care of that, right? If you're having issues with different parts of your body, you want to understand, then you want to understand different ways to get to them and so forth. Yeah. So like anything, it's about a habit. That's all it boils
Hmm.
down to. It's creating the habit, committing to it, and getting consistent. That's it.
Hmm. And I guess learning the right ways to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 100%. Yeah.
I think I mentioned this with a guest on a prior episode, and I still can't wrap my mind around it. But I had seen an interview with a multimillionaire on his private jet. This was just a business podcast or something, and the interviewer asked him something about life changing experiences or lessons he's learned or something, and he said that the single most impactful thing that he's ever done or learned in his life or that's made a change in his life was active stretching. Like, on a daily basis. He stretches for like an hour, and he said it's changed his life so much that he can't explain it. And I wanted him to explain it because I'd never heard anyone say something like that before. And he demonstrated these deep stretches on the plane that he does with his hips and his legs. And he's like,
Yeah.
so how would you think, knowing about this, um, what do you think his answer would have been if we said, well, how did it change you so dramatically? Like, what do you what are some possible ways? Is it just in how you feel like on a day-to-day basis, or pain-free, or
Yeah.
what can
I
we
get
expect?
I'm living it. I get it. I get it 100%. Yeah, you feel better. You move better. You are going to prevent injury and relieve pain. It's just one component. I don't believe that it's the only component that we need. We need several, right?
At
But
least two
it
more.
yeah, there's some more. But yeah, it's extremely important. Oh my gosh, it's life-changing for people because most of us aren't willing to slow down, aren't willing to take the time to do something that we consider so menial when it's
Yeah,
so powerful. And
yeah.
that's what it boils down to.
It would, like, 10 minutes a day be sufficient?
You can do whatever you can. You can do 5 minutes. You can do 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Like, yeah, 100%. You can get in a total repertoire in 15 minutes. If you have more time, you can spend it. Right.
Hmm.
I think the thing I've found with stretching is once you get into it, it's addictive. It feels good. You're reaping the benefits. So you want to do more. It's about like everything, making it work for you and fit into your life. That's what it
Hmm.
boils down to. And there's so many ways to do that.
Gotcha. Okay, so um, therapeutic Pilates, mobility stretches. What's next?
The other thing that I feel is really important is what I call fascia release.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard of
And
that a lot, like in massage therapy too.
yeah, exactly. So I was just going to say, if you've gotten a massage, do you know that's what's going on, right?
Fascial release, or even like cupping and things like that people try to do more aggressively.
Yeah. So yeah, rolfing, deep tissue work, cupping,
Hmm.
Traeger therapy. There's so much we can do for the fascia that we can get done in our body. So the fascia, in case you're listening and you're wondering what the heck is that, it's a spider web like substance. That's what it looks like, and it covers our muscles inside. It's like a system in and of itself. So you could have something
Hmm.
going on with your shoulder. When that's released, it affects your knee. Bottom line is that when we break up adhesions there, we can have immense benefits in our movement, free up our movement, mobility, and reduce pain. So it's an amazing tool. And what I think people don't know is that you don't have to get a massage all the time to do this. You can do many things on your own body. I love massages and I love to
Hmm.
get body work, right? But I don't have
Yeah.
time to do that every week. Um, so I want to maintain my own fascia. So I use a lot of small balls. I do use a big cylinder device called like a foam roller that some of you may be familiar with,
Hmm.
and that's just uh, power. It's it's like I can take care of my fascia in all areas: shoulders, hips, legs, spine,
Yeah. Or those
feet.
percussive massagers
Mhm,
that you can use on your muscles. Those help
mhm.
to release it too, I think. Um, how about acupuncture? I don't think that gets down into the fascia, or at least maybe not in most, large muscle groups. It's more of something else, probably.
Yes, I so from my understanding it with acupuncture it's a little bit different. It's based more on energy systems
Right.
as opposed to direct fascial release.
Hmm. And so clearly, there's so much more to all of these areas. This is just kind of a framework for dealing with it. Um, does diet come into play
Yeah.
with?
Yeah.
So how do you incorporate that into not general fitness and health and all that, but just um, you know treatment of pain and prevention, pain relief? Is it avoiding like inflammatory foods, or what's your advice on diet?
Well, there are so many different types of diets out there, and I think that you got to find, what works for you. I'm not going to say any particular diet is better than another, but what I would say is, in general, getting rid of processed foods, cutting out the sugar, eating more whole foods. What that means
Mhm.
to you. If you're going to be vegan, that's fine. If you're going to incorporate meat, then go for the grass-fed meat, go for the organic meat, go for the things that are going to have less toxins and things in there that aren't good for the body, less
Mhm.
preservatives. So inflammation can be caused by many things. One thing I know I've found personally I had to eliminate from my diet is gluten, and that was a game changer, because I was having severe tendinosis of the wrist and doing a lot of things from a movement standpoint. But saw a naturopathic doctor, and once I got rid of the gluten, the pain went away. So certainly there are things that can be triggering pain in our body that are causing inflammation. And my always tell people the best resource for that is a functional medicine, naturopathic type doctor that or even functional nutritionists that can delve into those areas, and go above and beyond what mainstream medical has to offer and look at that.
Do they have to do testing, or do they just do process of elimination?
The doctors, like the functional
For
medicine doctor.
for you, like with
Yep.
figuring out gluten, was it, hey, let's try this because a lot of people respond, or do they do testing on you?
Yeah, there's testing, and testing can be done in many different ways. And I've seen different doctors now. So yes, I think testing can be done, and the proof is in the pudding when you stop doing something, and it's like, oh my gosh, that really is working. you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Um, well, let's just kind of get to some of the questions that I know you enjoy answering. You talked about unexercising. Tell us what that means. I think I'm really good at unexercising.
well, it doesn't mean that. Okay, it doesn't mean not to exercise, right? Unexercising is really about slowing down in the beginning and learning to connect to your own body and using your breathing. And you can unexercise and integrate in stretching.
Hmm.
Okay. You can unexercise and start building your foundation for therapeutic Pilates, which is using your breath to connect to deep muscles in your body that are inactive.
Hmm.
Okay. And you can even unexercise by doing some fascia release. All right. There you go. So, yeah. So it's slowing down and actually doing things that we probably aren't used to doing or don't want to do.
Gotcha. Or resting in a really conscientious way.
So taking it down a notch, because we get, and then the other two other pillars I would include would be overall movement, aka cardiovascular exercise. I don't even use the term anymore, and I've worked in cardiac rehab settings. Is that we need to move. We're beings, we're
Hmm.
creatures. We need to move for our heart, for our health overall. And that's great for anxiety and depression, all those things as well. But we don't need to push it to the extreme, especially when it comes to injury prevention and pain relief. If we're talking about continual movement, 10 minutes matters. Get up out of your chair. The studies have shown us that we can have improvements in our health with 10 minutes of continual exercise. Take 10 minutes, go on a walk if that's good for your body. I'm big into joint friendly exercise. I'm
Hmm.
not a runner. I've never have been, and I don't really promote it. I mean, there's people that do run, but I think that over time, things happen to our joints. And that's what been my experience and what I've seen. So there's plenty of things we can do. 10 minutes, get on a bike.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Or just get up and stretch if your work requires you to sit at a desk all day. Um,
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing I would say is start increasing your activities of your daily living, ADLs. Start moving around, wear one of the devices, like a Fitbit or something, and look
mhm.
at your steps, and, just being aware that we need to move. Now, we still need to do the things that sustain our movement if we want to move well. And that would be
Mhm.
what I was talking about: your fascia release, your stretching, your therapeutic Pilates. And the last one would be whole body strength. We need to stay strong. And I don't want to inward that. We need to stay strong.
So, are you saying there's five basic components?
Yep.
Okay. So that's a lot of stuff, but it's all part of a total health and wellness regimen, right? Is that
Yeah.
essentially what composes your complete well body method?
Yeah. So at the heart of the complete well body method, which I'm obviously really passionate about, are those pillars. And it's helping people integrate those pillars into their life in a convenient and achievable manner.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And do you have you work with people one on one?
Yeah, so the program is a 5 month program, and it starts with building your foundation, and then there are different phases that you go through. So
Hmm.
when I'm working with somebody, weekly, I am available for people to help them. We're looking if they have particular questions, if they want me to look at anything going on, check their form, or so forth. Accountability, right? And also, I do a live call weekly with everybody that I work with to help keep their health and wellness at the forefront. And I rotate different topics. Obviously, the pillars, mindset, nutrition, breathing, all those things that are extremely important.
So is it a
Um,
course, like an online
Kind
or
of.
a
So
membership program?
it is kind of, but not really. So it's a learn by doing empowerment type program. So you are getting like the things that I know are going to work. You're
Hmm.
getting them delivered to you individually through an application each week. So
Got it.
I'm watching what you're doing. So you're checking off. So my goal for every person that I work with is by the end of the 5 months, they've got everything that they need for a lifetime that's sustainable, all these pillars, and they've got a chance to practice and learn and do them.
Hmm.
So
So, how can people who think this sounds appealing get involved?
they can reach out to me directly. They can go to my website, which is movementcraft.com, or they can email me at carrie@movementcraft.com.
Okay. And do you have any social media outlets or YouTube or anything that you kind of do some teaching as well?
So I am at movementcraft on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. I think I'm even on TikTok. I don't get on there a lot, but yeah, I'm on the I am on the social media platforms.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll definitely check those out. And like I said, there's so much more here to delve into. But I think that just the basic concept of moving, slowing down, stretching, just paying attention more to your body's needs is a great start for a lot of people who don't do that, right?
Oh, 100%. Yes,
Hmm.
I would agree.
Thank you. Anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners, in particular about your mission to help people live pain free, or any other news on your side?
No, I just personally believe that everybody deserves to know that movement can be a powerful form of medicine, and that there are ways to experience the freedom of movement without hurting or injuring yourself.
Hmm. That's key, right?
Yeah,
That's key, and to be able to live pain free is huge for quality of life. Well,
yeah.
Carrie, I think that you've given us lots to think about, and I know I personally will be looking into doing some more stretching and maybe try out some Pilates. I think that sounds like just what I need. So
Excellent.
thank you for sharing with us. And I really encourage all you guys listening to check Carrie out at her website, movementcraft.com, or the social media. And hopefully, some of what we've learned today will really start to impact our daily lives. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, anytime. Well, have a good day, and anyone who has a question, also please feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and I will pass it along to Carrie if I don't have an answer for you myself. All right, take care. Thanks a lot.